knew the voice wasn't on the radio. At least, not the regular kind of radio. It didn't come through with static. No tuning click, no mechanical shift. Just, there it was. Somewhere low, somewhere close, like it was breathing right behind my seat and using my mouth to speak. "Keep driving, Matthew," it said. I froze, my hands still on the wheel, eyes on the dark road ahead, headlights swallowed by endless rain. The wipers thumped like a heart too slow to care. The dashboard lights hummed a soft blue. Normal. All of it looked normal. But that voice, my own voice, wasn't mine. I reached for the CB. Nothing but silence. I turned the dial. No channel, no hiss. Just the hum of the engine and the soft pelt of rain on the windshield. And then it said it again. "Keep driving, Matthew." I didn't answer. I didn't blink. Because in the corner of my eye, in the reflection of the passenger side window, I saw something. Not someone. Not really. A shape. A wet outline. A presence. And the thing is, when you've spent 20 years behind the wheel of a rig, you learn not to jump at ghosts. You learn that shadows dance when your eyelids are heavy. You learn that the hum of the road can sound like a song you haven't heard since you were 12. You learn what's real and what's just sleep dragging its fingers across your neck. But this wasn't sleep, because the seat beside me was empty when I started the engine. I'm sure of it. Empty and dry. Just a can of Coke in the holder and a folded map on the dash. But now, there was a coat. A long black coat, or maybe a cloak, soaked through, water still dripping to the floor mat, even though I hadn't stopped in hours. It looked heavy, ancient, and resting right on top of it. A single, old-fashioned button, like something from a colonial reenactment. Round and brass, etched with something I couldn't quite see. I reached out, touched it. Cold, too cold. I turned my eyes back to the road. Then the CB crackled, just once. A whisper, barely more than breath. "You forgot me, Matthew." I hit the brakes. Hard. The truck skidded just a little, hydroplaning before gripping again. My coffee cup flew, hit the glove box, splattered. I stared into the mirrors. Not for long, not like he told me not to, but just enough to see it. The seat was empty again. No coat, no button. Nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat hammering the wheel. I sat there for a long moment, engine idling, rain beating down like it was trying to punch through the roof. I stared straight ahead, not moving, not thinking, just breathing, in and out. Like maybe if I stayed quiet enough, it would go away. Like maybe this wasn't real. Then, just as I reached for the CB again, something shifted. Not outside, inside. Not a voice, not even a word. Just the shape of a thought. In a voice that wasn't mine, saying, "She rides with you now." I didn't want another job. Not that week. Not after the dreams I'd been having. Not after waking up 2 nights in a row with the smell of smoke in my hair, when there hadn't been a single fire. But bills don't wait, and grief doesn't pay the rent. So I said yes. The dispatcher called around 9:30, late, said a museum in Boston needed an emergency courier, special cargo. No hazmat, no live freight, just a crate. 1 single crate. Sealed, marked, insured. Handle with care. I almost said no. But something about the voice on the other end made it feel like I already had. Boston was slick with rain when I pulled in. Cobbled streets turned to dark mirrors, headlights slipping across puddles like ghosts trying to go somewhere else. I found the side dock, just off a narrow alley behind the museum, stone building, Shuttered windows, no signs, no guards. Just a steel door propped open with a rusted cart and a faint amber light inside. A man stepped out, older, thin, damp around the eyes. Gray jacket, no name badge. He didn't look at me, just walked over to the truck with a limp, like his left leg didn't want to follow. "You're the carrier," he said. Not a question. I nodded. Once. He stared at me for a second, like he was trying to remember my face from a dream, then motioned inside. The crate was already waiting by the dock entrance, about the size of a steamer trunk, thick oak, brass hinges. No markings except one, 417B, and burned into the wood, small, off to the side. The letters GA and a date 1692. I didn't ask questions. He held out a clipboard, but his hands shook too much to write. I signed for it myself. He just stood there. Before I wheeled it up the ramp, he said something. Soft. Too soft. "Don't stop, don't look back, and don't open it." I paused, looked at him. He didn't meet my eyes. Rain started coming harder, thick sheets hammering the roof of the loading dock. Somewhere nearby, a church bell rang. Even though it was almost midnight, I got the crate inside the trailer, locked it down tight. That's when I noticed it. The smell. Faint, not strong, not obvious. But it was there. Not mold, not oil, not wood. It smelled like ash, like a fireplace, long dead, but still warm if you press your hand close enough. I climbed into the cab, shut the door, tried not to think about the sound the crate made when it hit the trailer floor like it exhaled. Just once. Turned the key. Nothing. Dashboard stayed black. Engine didn't even click. No turnover. No lights. Like the truck had died while I was inside. I tried again. Nothing. Then, third try. It roared to life. Everything came on at once. Dashboard lights, radio, wipers, headlights. But the CB stayed silent. No static, no welcome, just blank, like it was waiting. I sat back, exhaled, watched the water stream sideways across the windshield like it was trying to spell something, and failed. Then I whispered to myself, because saying it out loud made it feel more real. One last haul, then I'm done. And somewhere deep in the trailer, far back, behind the locked door, I thought I heard something. Move. I didn't realize I was heading the wrong way. Not at first. The rain blurred everything. The lines, the signs, the difference between memory and moment. I thought I was heading south. I was sure of it. Baton Rouge was nearly 1,500 miles away, and my GPS had picked the most efficient overnight route. Simple, straightforward. I'd driven it before. But 2 hours out of Boston, something changed. Not the road. The road was the same. But the voice in my gut, the one that keeps you from falling asleep at the wheel, started whispering something else. Turn around. I didn't listen. The CB was still dead. Completely dead. The radio kept flipping to static after every song, like the station was trying to avoid itself. And the headlights, God, the way they cut through the rain, it was like driving underwater. Black water, no horizon, no curve, just straight into the void. Then I noticed it. The same exit. I passed it twice. Didn't make sense. I hadn't looped back. I was on the same road, never turned off, never missed a junction. But the green sign glared through the mist again, like deja vu wrapped in wet steel. Exit 21, Cotton Hollow Road. No town listed, no population, just a name that felt wrong in the mouth. I told myself maybe I imagined it. I mean, it happens. Long nights, bad visibility. Could have been exit 22 before. Could have been something else entirely. But then it happened again. 20 minutes later, Cotton Hollow Road. Same place, same sign. Same half-burned billboard a mile after it. An ad for a motel chain that doesn't exist anymore. I knew because the building burned down 5 years ago. I remember the story. And that's when I started to sweat. Not cold sweat, not fear sweat. Guilt. The kind that creeps out from somewhere you thought was already dead. The kind that says, you know what this is. You've been here before, Matthew. Not the road, the feeling, that hum, that weight, that soundless pressure in your chest. Like you're being stared at through the fog. I pulled over. Just for a second. Parked on the shoulder, engine still running, wipers scraping over glass like fingernails on old wood. I stared at the windshield, then at my hands on the wheel. They were shaking. Not because of the cold, Buffett, because I saw something on my left wrist. Something I hadn't noticed before. A smudge. No. A mark. Faint, like something rubbed into the skin with soot. A circle, closed, cracked through the middle. I wiped it with my sleeve. It didn't come off. My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed the rearview mirror to check my face, just to ground myself, to prove I was still me. But there was no reflection. Not blank. No. Worse than blank. The mirror showed movement, like heat shimmer. Someone standing there behind me. But the seat was empty. I let go. Didn't check again. Instead, I put the truck in drive and told myself, again, you're just tired. But the road felt different now. The rain sounded thicker, like it wasn't falling on glass anymore, but on skin. I was down to a quarter tank by the time I pulled off for fuel, somewhere off I-81. Didn't catch the town name, if there was one. The road sign was bent at an angle, and the station looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Maybe earlier. 2 working pumps, flickering overhead lights, 1 dusty vending machine against the brick wall. The rain had slowed, but it hadn't stopped. Just changed its rhythm, like it was waiting. I coasted in slow. Pump 1 was taped off with yellow caution ribbon, so I pulled up to pump 3. The canopy above creaked in the wind. Somewhere a flag clattered, half torn, hanging sideways from a rusted pole. There wasn't another car in sight. The station was closed, but the pumps were still on. Old analog meters, the kind that click when they count. I cut the engine, stepped out. The air smelled like wet pavement and something else. Burnt plastic, maybe a wire shorted in the storm. I grabbed the nozzle, started fueling. Stared into the windows of the station. The inside was dark, shelves half empty, cooler door cracked open, no movement. And then I felt it, that pressure again. Not cold, not hot, just the sense that someone was too close behind me, but not touching. I turned. There she was, standing just a few feet away, on the other side of the truck. Still. Too still. A woman. Mid-30s. Long black coat, hood up, barefoot, soaked. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared, not at me, at the trailer, at what I was hauling. I opened my mouth. Ma'am, are you okay? But no sound came out. She blinked once, tilted her head. That's when I noticed. Her skin wasn't wet. Not really. It was steaming. Just the faintest tendrils, rising from her coat like smoke, like she was drying from the inside out. And her feet. The puddles didn't ripple under them. They were still. Dead still. I dropped the nozzle. It clanged against the metal guard. When I looked again, she was gone. Not walking, not turning, just not there. I stared at the space where she'd been. It was warmer now, almost humid. I got back in the cab, locked the doors, started the engine, didn't even check the fuel total. Just pulled out, fast, tires splashing against the soaked pavement. And 5 minutes later, a siren cut through the silence. I slowed down, 2 miles ahead, fire trucks, police tape, orange cones. The gas station was burning, completely engulfed. Flames licking the canopy, smoke rising into the rain like it belonged there, like it had been waiting. I rolled past slowly, heart thudding, breath locked behind my teeth. An officer waved me through, didn't even look at the cab. As I passed the station, I saw it, just for a second. A black coat, tangled in the flames, untouched, and rising through the smoke. A whisper over the CB. She saw you, Matthew, and she remembers. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't stop either. Just kept driving. 1 mile at a time. Deeper into something I couldn't name. The fire at the station stayed behind me, but it didn't leave me. The smoke clung to my thoughts like it had seeped in through the vents. I could still see her, standing there, still. Watching the trailer? Not me. The cargo. The rain started again around 3, harder this time. Not sharp, not violent, just steady. Relentless. A sound you stop noticing after a while, until you realize it hasn't stopped. The wipers thumped like a heartbeat losing its will. The CB was still quiet. Too quiet. Not even the faint static anymore. Just dead air. Like someone was holding the mic on the other end and listening. My phone wouldn't charge. The map app froze. Time on the dash blinked 12 logs. Over and over again. Like it had just been born and didn't know what hour it was. Somewhere in Tennessee, the lines on the road began to shift. At first, I thought it was just the glare. Rain catching the paint. But no. They were veering, slightly, curving to the left, then back, then again. Like the road itself didn't know which direction to take. Or maybe it was being led. I turned off the GPS. Didn't matter. It was trying to take me in circles. No voice commands, just an arrow. Spinning. Spinning. I was alone. Miles passed. Maybe hours. My hands were stiff. Joints sore. Eyes dry. Not tired. Just wrong. Like blinking was an interruption. Like there was something behind every blink I wasn't supposed to see. Then, just past a lonely stretch of pines. The road forked. No sign. No light. No reason. Just 2 identical paths, black and wet, snaking off into the dark. I slowed down. And that's when the CB clicked on. Just once. No static. No voice. Just breathing. Close, not shallow, not labored, just calm, rhythmic, human. I didn't move, didn't touch the dial. And then, take the left, Matthew. Soft, female. I didn't recognize the voice, but something inside me did. It didn't come through the speaker. It came from the air, from the rain, from the seat beside me, even though it was empty. I didn't ask how she knew my name. I just turned left. And as soon as the wheels hit the new road, the engine purred. Lights steadied, wipers smoothed. My own heart rate dropped. And somewhere deep in the truck, I swear I felt something settle. Like a passenger, finally finding her place. I drove another mile, and then I whispered it out loud. She knows the road better than I do. I didn't mean to look her up. Didn't want to know anything more than I already did. Not after the voice, the fork in the road, the way the truck seemed to breathe when I took that left turn. But something pushed me. Maybe it was the way my hands trembled when they touched the wheel. Maybe it was the way the rain changed tempo, like it was listening, waiting. Or maybe it was just that I needed to believe she was once real, so I could pretend this wasn't. I pulled into a rest stop just past Jackson, Tennessee. 3 trucks, all dark. 1 broken soda machine flickering like a dying star. I stayed in the cab, engine running, heat on low, opened the laptop, I typed one name. The letters slow, like I already knew what I'd find. Grace Alden. It didn't take long. There she was. An old sketch, scanned from parchment. Her face blurred. But the eyes, God, the eyes, they were still clear. Sharp. Staring out like she'd seen the future and hated it. Salem, 1692. Tried as a witch. Accused of inverting flesh, whatever that means. Said to have cursed the birth of livestock, dried rivers, turned infants cold in the cradle. No proof, no confession. Only silence. And fire. She was hanged in the hollow just west of the main village. The last before the rains came that year. The last before the fire spread. She never screamed. That's what the archive said. She never begged. She just stared at the magistrate until he wept. And then she closed her eyes, and they put the rope around her neck. There was a second article, not official. A journal entry from a local gravedigger. Her body would not rot. It stayed warm 3 nights. The birds circled, but none touched her. And then this, scratched into the margins in red ink. She waits for the blood to return. The 7th son of the line that pulled the lever. My breath caught. I read it again. 7th son. I opened my family tree on a second tab. Something I hadn't looked at since my daughter died. Corbin. That was my mother's name before she married. Elijah Corbin. A name scratched on the Salem court logs, right next to executioner. My great. I don't even know how many. My blood. I sat there, staring at the screen. Too still, too quiet. Then, the truck rocked. Just once, like someone stepped inside. I turned, slowly. The passenger seat was empty, but there was water on the seat now. Not rain, not splash. Just a perfect, still puddle, right in the center of the cushion. And above it, the faintest shape in the fogged glass of the side window. A handprint, fingers long, pressed deep, and traced under it, barely visible, a single word. Home. The truck started on the first try. That's what unsettled me the most. After the last 2 nights, after the silence, the flickering dash, the way the GPS had spun like a compass with no north, I expected resistance. But no. This time the engine turned over like it was waiting for me, like it wanted to go. I pulled out of the rest stop just after 4 a.m., darkest part of the night. Right before the sky decides whether to become day again or just give up. The rain hadn't stopped. It never did now. But it had changed. Softer. More like a curtain than a storm. It didn't fall. It hung. Soaked everything. Muted the world. And then, something started knocking. Just past mile marker 207. Not sharp. Not metallic. Not like something was loose. No, it was rhythmic. Knock, knock, knock. From under the hood. I slowed down, turned off the music. What little was still coming through the radio. Still there. Knock, knock. Not fast, not panic. Patient. I pulled off onto the shoulder. Flashers on, wipers still sweeping the same arc they'd been tracing for hours. Opened the door, stepped out. The rain was warmer than it should have been. I popped the hood, walked around the front, eyes scanning the engine block. And that's when I heard it, not the knocking. That stopped the moment I opened the latch. No, this was different. From somewhere deep in the guts of the truck, a sound like breathing. No rhythm, no pattern. Just air, being pulled in, let out from somewhere it didn't belong. I leaned in, closer, stared down into the shadows between the radiator and the fan belt. And then I heard it. A cry. Soft, fragile. A baby. Just one short wail. Cut off before it finished. I reeled back, slammed the hood down hard enough to make the whole cab shake. Stood there, drenched, alone, breathing too fast. The rain came heavier again, like it had been waiting for me to hear that. I got back in the truck, hands shaking, jaw locked, tried to start the engine again. Nothing. Once, twice, third time, roar, but not normal. The engine didn't sound like my engine anymore. It growled, low and long, like something had settled into it. And then, through the hum of the heater, the hiss of the rain, the whisper of wipers, a voice from the vents, from under the dash. A woman's voice, laughing. I should have checked the trailer sooner. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe because deep down, I didn't want to see it. Didn't want to know what had shifted, what had breathed, what had laughed. But after what happened under the hood, after that sound, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I pulled into a dirt lot off a forgotten side road. Nothing around but skeletal trees and wet gravel. No buildings, no lights, just emptiness. Left the engine idling, climbed down, opened the rear bay. The trailer door creaked like it hadn't been touched in years, even though I'd locked it 2 nights ago. The lock was still intact, chain still wrapped. But something about it felt wrong. Too clean, too dry. As if the rain had stopped just for this one spot. I slid the door open, and there it was. The crate had moved. Not far, just a foot or two. But it had turned, not shifted. Turned, angled, like it was facing the open door now. Like it had repositioned itself to watch. I climbed inside, walked slow, one step at a time, boots echoing on the metal floor, muffled by the storm outside. I knelt beside the crate, ran my fingers along the edge, still sealed, still nailed shut, but there was something sticking out between the slats. Thin, black, fabric, or paper. I reached for it, pulled gently. It slid out smooth, like it wanted to come, like it had been waiting. A page, old, brittle, almost translucent in the light of my flashlight. No words, just a drawing. A circle with 7 lines, each ending in a hand, and in the center, a single eye. Not human, not animal, just watching. The page curled in my hand, like it was breathing. I dropped it. It didn't fall flat. It floated, hovered just a second longer than it should have, then settled without a sound. That's when I saw the crack, a thin seam along the top of the crate, like the wood had started to split from the inside. And from that split, a faint mist. No, not mist. Breath, warm, slow, rhythmic, like the crate was sleeping, like it had lungs. I backed away, Fast. Almost stumbled down the ramp. Slammed the trailer door shut. Locked it. Wrapped the chain twice. Then sat in the cab. Hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. And I listened. To the sound of rain. To the low hum of the engine. To the feeling somewhere deep in the steel behind me that I wasn't alone in this truck anymore. That whatever was in that crate knew I was awake. The CB came back to life at 3:17 a.m. No warning, no static, just voices, dozens of them, layered, overlapping, whispering over each other like wind through dry leaves. Some male, some female, some, God help me, sounded like children. I hadn't touched the dial. The channel light wasn't even on. But the voices were there. Inside the speaker. Like they'd tunneled through the wires just to find me. And then, one of them broke free. Cut through the noise. A man's voice. Calm. Measured. Steady. Like someone who used to drive nights. And never quite stopped. Breaker 19. You got your ears on? I froze. The voice continued. I know what you're hauling, friend, and it ain't freight. I leaned forward, reached for the mic, didn't key it yet. The voice again. You picked her up from Boston, didn't you? Black crate, oak slats. Smells like something burnt and never stopped burning. My hand hovered over the switch. You're not the first. Click. I keyed the mic. Who is this? Silence. Then, a sigh. No one you want to meet? Maybe someone who can help you get out before it's too late. I swallowed. My throat felt dry, even in the rain. You've seen her? The CB hissed, then calmed. I've seen what she leaves behind. I waited. Nothing. Then, he spoke again. They called it the CB graveyard. Back in the 80s, Route 42 east of Vicksburg. Trucks would go quiet for miles. Radios dead. Signals eaten. And then, sometimes, you'd hear a voice that wasn't yours. I felt it in my chest, like a cold finger dragging down bone. She likes the radio. Always has. Ever since they burned her words, ever since they took her tongue and turned it into ash. She speaks through wires now, through coil and current. The rain began to fall harder, faster, pounding the cab like fists. The voice dropped to a whisper. She's almost there, Matthew. I slammed the mic back into its holster, looked in the mirror. Nothing behind me, nothing beside me. But the CB stayed on, not static, not words, just breathing. And underneath it, way down in the lower frequencies, my name. Over and over, drawn out, like a hymn whispered through glass. Matthew. It was just after dawn when I found the diner. Not on the map, not in the GPS, not even in the mile log. It was just there. Faded green sign, neon letters half lit. Jimmy's Diner, truckers welcome. The kind of place that looks exactly the same no matter the state you're in, or the decade. I hadn't eaten in 16 hours. Parked the rig out back, close enough to keep her in sight. That mattered now. Too much. The rain had slowed to a mist. Everything looked soft, like the world was trying to disappear behind itself. I walked in. Bell over the door. Smell of eggs, grease, coffee gone stale, and silence. No voices, no customers. Just one man behind the counter, wiping it slowly, like he'd been doing it for years and never thought to stop. He looked up, didn't smile. You're late, he said. I blinked. Excuse me? He nodded toward the booth in the corner. Jimmy always sat there when he was running her south. My throat tightened. Jimmy who? The man just stared, then said, "You're on his route now. You know that, right?" I didn't answer, because I remembered the name. Not from the papers, not from the net, from the registry, from the stack of delivery manifests I'd seen once in dispatch. When the crate first got booked, J. Holloway wrote 4 on 17B, Boston to Baton Rouge, same crate, same weight, same delivery ID. But Jimmy never made it. Truck found empty, engine still warm, radio hissing like it was dreaming. No blood, no sign of a struggle. Only thing left behind was a black coat, folded on the seat, same kind as the one I saw at bump 3. I sat in the booth, not sure why. Didn't order anything. Didn't need to. The man poured coffee anyway. Watched me drink it. Said nothing. Then, as I stood to leave, he reached into his apron and pulled out something small, thin, old, a photo, a trucker, smiling. Arms around a woman in a black cloak, hood pulled low, only her mouth visible, no eyes. He handed it to me. Jimmy thought he was doing a job, the man said. Didn't know he was carrying something that was already looking for him. I stared at the picture. And there, scratched into the corner, barely visible, a date. The same day I picked up the crate. But 4 years ago. I left the photo on the counter, walked out slow, didn't look back. Back in the cab, I sat for a long time before turning the key, and before the engine even caught. The CB clicked. He left something for you, Matthew. The CB stayed quiet after Jimmy's. Too quiet. Not peaceful, not empty. Just dead. Like someone had cut the wire, not with scissors, but with fire. And the silence that followed wasn't absence. It was presence. Like the space had been cleared for something else. Something bigger. I drove west for hours. Didn't speak, didn't eat. Just the road and the rain and the occasional flicker of headlights from the opposite lane, like brief reminders that someone else still existed out there. But I didn't feel alone. I never felt alone anymore. Not since Grace. Not since the trailer began to feel heavier at night, like something inside was standing now instead of sitting. Around mile marker 141, the dashboard lights dimmed. Not all at once. One by one. Like a house shutting itself down, room after room. The CB crackled, but only faintly. Not voices. Breath. Slow, controlled. Not mine. Then the cabin got colder. Not like the AC kicked on. Like something opened a door that shouldn't exist. I looked over at the passenger seat, empty, of course. But the seatbelt was pulled tight across it now. Latched. Wet. I don't remember putting it there. Didn't even think the latch still worked. And then the rearview mirror began to fog. From the inside. Just the center of the glass, a perfect oval of condensation, as if someone were breathing on it. I leaned in. The fog trembled. And then, with no hand, with no sound, a single line began to form through the haze. A finger, invisible, dragging through the mist. You're the last. I jerked the wheel. The truck swerved hard, right wheels kissing the gravel shoulder. Trailer groaned. Tires spit water. I corrected fast, breathed harder. Didn't check the mirror again. Didn't speak, didn't blink for at least a minute. Because I knew what came next. Grace had learned to speak without a mouth. She had learned to write without hands. And now, she was learning to drive without a body. I crossed into Louisiana just before midnight. Didn't realize it right away. There was no sign, no marker, no "Welcome to" lit up in friendly letters. Only the sudden sense that something had changed. The air got thicker, not just humid, dense, like breathing through wet wool. The rain didn't fall anymore. It hung, suspended, like it was afraid to touch the ground. And the road, it was too quiet. No insects, no frogs, no movement in the trees, just the hum of my engine. And the sound of the wipers still dragging across the windshield like they didn't want to work anymore. Then I saw it, stretching across the road. At first I thought it was paint, like some local ordinance had added a reflective strip for nighttime safety. But it wasn't paint. It was salt. A long, perfect line of salt, poured clean across both lanes, edge to edge, bright white against the black asphalt, not disturbed by rain, not broken. Just there, waiting. The truck slowed as it reached it. Not because I braked, because something else did. The engine dropped 2 RPMs. Dashboard lights dimmed again. Wipers paused just for a second, then kept moving. And something behind me shifted. A low creak, the sound of weight being lifted. I looked into the mirror. I shouldn't have, but I did. And for just a second, just one flicker between blinks, I saw her, not standing, not seated, floating. A woman's shape, soaked and bent slightly at the waist, hair hanging forward, face hidden, cloak black as the sky, and eyes. Her eyes were closed, but she was smiling. I blinked, and she was gone. The cab was silent again, but the truck had stopped moving, dead stop, right in front of the Saltline, like it couldn't or wouldn't go forward. I put it in neutral. Tried to roll across, nothing. Tried again. First gear, then second. The wheels spun like they'd forgotten how to grip. I climbed out, rain hissing as it hit my back, walked around front. The salt wasn't melting, not even damp. It was glowing faintly now, pulsing. And just past it, maybe 20 feet off the road, I saw them. Figures, not people, not anymore. Shapes, cloaked, still, like gravestones turned upright, just watching. I stepped back, hands shaking, spoke out loud. "Grace, what is this?" The wind picked up, just enough to move the trees, and from behind me, so close I could feel the air shift, a whisper. "Boundary." I didn't sleep, didn't even try. Just sat in the cab, engine off, rain licking the windows in soft waves. The salt line still glowed ahead. The figures still stood in the trees, unmoving, unreadable. But they weren't my concern anymore, because something was changing in me. I noticed it as I flexed my hands, trying to ease the ache from gripping the wheel too long. At first I thought it was just a stain, maybe grease, road filth. But it didn't wipe off. It didn't smear. It was under the skin. A shape, faint, raised just slightly, like a scar still fresh. I rolled up my sleeve. There it was. A circle, etched into the inside of my forearm. But not smooth. It was cracked down the middle. Inside the circle, 7 tiny marks. Not dots, not letters. Fingers. 7 fingers. And in the center, a sliver of something darker than the rest. Not ink, not skin, something alive. It pulsed when I touched it. My breath caught, because it didn't hurt. It felt like recognition, like something ancient, finally remembering your name after centuries of silence. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time, I saw her face. Grace Alden, not in the reflection, not as a ghost behind me, but in me, in the eyes, in the set of the mouth. way my fingers curled as I traced the mark. This wasn't a haunting. It was a handover. She wasn't riding with me. She was becoming me. Or maybe I was becoming her. I heard her voice, not in the air, not through the CB, but in my bones. Deep, low, certain. The mark doesn't take. It returns. The rain stopped, just like that. No fade, no shift. Just silence. Too wide, too long. And in that stillness, I felt something inside me blink. Something old, something buried. And I whispered, "I'm not just delivering her, am I?" A pause. Then, from inside the trailer, 3 slow knocks. I didn't speak for a long time. Didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to test what I already knew. Because when I opened my mouth now, when I whispered, when I breathed words into the air, she came out with them. It started small, repeating things I had said a fraction of a second later, like an echo, but not quite right. Not an imitation, a presence. A second voice, soft, low, too close. Sometimes it overlapped mine just slightly. Other times, it spoke before I could, like it already knew what I was going to say. I sat in the cab, parked just outside a fog-sunken truck stop. Couldn't see the building, could barely see the pumps. The CB was dead again. No breath, no whisper. But the cab wasn't quiet, because every time I thought in words, she answered. I looked in the mirror, slowly this time. My face, still mine. But the way I held my mouth, it was hers. The stillness in my shoulders, the way I didn't blink unless I reminded myself to. That was hers too. And then, I heard myself say something, out loud, but I didn't mean to. Home is closer now. I hadn't thought that, hadn't felt it, but the words had come from my mouth, and I'd said them in her voice. I gripped the wheel, tried again. Say something normal, I told myself. Anything. I cleared my throat, tried. My name is Matthew Corbin. I'm 38. I haul freight, not ghosts, not curses. But halfway through the sentence, the voice twisted. The last few words came out wrong. Hollow, soft, burnt. I touched my throat. It felt warm, not outside, inside, like breath had been replaced with smoke. And in the silence that followed, she laughed, not loud, just a ripple, like a match being struck in a dead room. It came from behind my teeth, and I knew, without question, she wasn't riding anymore. She wasn't waiting. She had moved in. I pulled into the next truck stop just as the night was folding into morning. Fog hung heavy, so thick it felt like a blanket smothering the world. The place was almost empty, just a few rigs lined up like ghosts, parked for good. I stepped out, boots splashing on wet concrete. The air smelled sharp, like ozone and old wood. There were others here, not many. 3 trucks parked side by side, their engines silent. And the drivers, they didn't look at me, not really. Eyes darted, heads tilted, not friendly, not hostile. Just watching. One of them approached, tall, thin, pale face like a moon washed in rain. He didn't smile. "Matthew Corbin," he said, voice low and rough. "You're carrying her." I swallowed. "How do you know my name?" He shrugged. "We all know." He gestured behind him at the 3 rigs. "All of us, we've hauled her. Different trucks, different roads, different times. But none of us got away." His eyes darkened. "Some come back broken. Others don't come back at all." Another driver stepped forward. Woman this time. She pulled back a soaked hood. Her eyes were scarred, like burned skin, cracked and raw. "They mark you," she said, voice barely above a whisper. The black cloak, the fire inside, the weight. I looked down at my arms. Mark pulsed faintly beneath my sleeve. "We're her followers now," the first man said. "Her children," the woman added. I tried to speak. Words stuck. My throat was tight. The fog swirled, and the silence settled heavier than before. Somewhere in the distance, far off but clear, the sound of a bell. Slow, tolling, like a funeral. I didn't want to drive again, but I had no choice. The followers watched as I climbed back into the cab. Faces hollow, eyes reflecting my fate in theirs. The engine started on its own. I didn't touch the key, didn't turn the wheel. But the truck began to move anyway. Slowly at first, rolling out of the lot, mist curling around the tires, rain sliding silently across glass. And then I realized I wasn't heading south anymore. The road looked familiar, but wrong. Signs blurred by rain, trees leaning closer than before. Like they knew something. I glanced at the GPS, dead black screen, lifeless since midnight. But the route was unmistakable. I was heading back, north, toward Boston. Toward the beginning. Panic twisted in my chest. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, tried to turn off onto a side road, a dirt path, anywhere. But the truck didn't respond. Instead, it accelerated just slightly, like a horse sensing home. Breath came faster, then slower, then stopped. Because outside the windshield, something was happening. Time was slipping backward. Rain fell upward, climbing skyward in slow trails of silver. Headlights flickered, reverse lights glowing instead, soft white beams shining behind me, showing where I'd already been. And the odometer, counting down. Miles ticking backward, numbers blurring as they rolled lower and lower. I tried to speak, tried to shout, but my voice came out reversed, garbled like words underwater. Then, in the mirror, I saw her clearly now. Grace Alden. Seated calmly in the passenger seat, eyes closed, face serene beneath her soaked black hood. She didn't look at me, didn't move, just whispered, softly, gently, as if comforting a frightened child. We returned to finish what they started. My own mouth moved silently, forming the same words at the same moment. Her voice, my voice, ours. Then, a sudden silence. The world snapped forward again. The rain fell properly, the road straightened. Grace was gone. The truck rolled smoothly ahead, still heading north, back toward where it all began. And on the windshield, in the condensation, drawn with a finger that left no mark. Almost home. The sign said, "Welcome to Salem," but it shouldn't have. I was nowhere near Salem, at least not on any road I recognized. But there it was, rusted edges, faded letters, standing crooked at the roadside like a tombstone nobody visits. Salem, Grace's home. My engine cut out as soon as I passed the sign. Rolled silent down an empty main street lined with buildings older than memory. Dark windows stared blankly, no lights, no signs of life. Just shadows and whispers behind glass that held their breath. I parked in the middle of the street, got out slowly. The air tasted stale, old smoke, wet earth. Dust settled over 1,000 lost stories. Rain fell softly now. Quiet taps against pavement worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. I walked toward the center of town, boots echoing softly, breath fogging the air in slow, misty clouds. The streetlights, dim bulbs and antique iron casings, buzzed faintly, flickering now and then, like they were deciding whether or not to stay awake. At the end of the street stood an old church, white paint chipped, bell tower leaning slightly, a weather vane frozen in mid-spin. The doors were already open. I stepped inside. Pews lined neatly in rows, empty, coated in thick layers of dust. Candles burned weakly, flames flickering without breeze, wax dripping silently onto worn wood. At the altar lay something dark, a cloak, Grace's cloak. I approached it slowly, each step heavier than the last, each breath shallow, heart beating too hard in my chest. I touched the fabric, still wet, cold, familiar. And then I heard it. A voice, soft, distant, like wind moving through hollow bones. "You brought me home, Matthew." I turned slowly and saw her. Grace Alden stood in the doorway. No hood this time, her hair wet and tangled, eyes sharp, but soft somehow. Her face younger than I'd imagined. Sadder. "You're not real?" I whispered. But the words sounded weak, even to me. She smiled faintly, shook her head. "I am as real as you've made me." She stepped closer, bare feet leaving damp prints on the wooden floor. "I never left Salem, Matthew. They only buried my bones. My spirit stayed, waiting." She stopped inches away, voice barely above a whisper. "For you." The candles flickered wildly now, shadows dancing across the walls. "Why me?" I managed. "Because your blood was there the night they took me. Because your blood must be there again." She placed her hand gently on my chest, cold, damp, but burning softly beneath the skin. "You're the key. You're the vessel." I closed my eyes. And when I opened them, the church was empty again. No Grace, no candles, just silence. Outside, rain fell harder. Salem stood dark and still, waiting for something that had already arrived. I don't remember walking back to the truck. I don't remember starting the engine. Don't remember turning back onto the road. But the next thing I knew, I was driving again. Hands on the wheel, steady. Sure, but they didn't feel like mine anymore. The rain fell softly, like an apology. The wipers moved slow, back and forth. A hypnotic rhythm matching my breath, matching hers. I glanced at the passenger seat, empty, still damp from where she'd sat. But somehow, she wasn't there anymore. She was somewhere else. Closer. Inside me. The thought didn't scare me this time. It felt inevitable. Peaceful even, like finally slipping into sleep after too long awake. But I still felt the difference. The small shifts, subtle changes. My heartbeat had slowed to match hers. Breathing. Deeper, slower. Even the way my eyes scanned the road, like she was guiding them gently. The truck moved smoother now, no resistance, as if it recognized who was driving, who had always been meant to drive. The radio flickered on softly, just static at first. But then, a song. Quiet, old. A melody I didn't know, but Grace did. Her voice whispered along with the words. So soft I barely noticed at first. Lips barely moving, voice barely mine. But the sound clear and gentle in the air. I tried to resist, for just a second. Tried to hold on to something that was only mine. But it was too late. I felt myself slide deeper. Merge, blend. The edges blurred. The borders vanished. We became something else. Something neither Matthew nor Grace, but something that belonged to both. Then, gently, effortlessly, she raised my hand from the wheel, reached up, slowly touched my face, felt unfamiliar skin, unfamiliar warmth, and my voice, our voice, whispered softly, "Welcome home." The road stretched ahead, endless and dark, but no longer frightening. The rain softened, became mist again, and inside the truck, silence fell comfortably, completely, as I disappeared into her and she into me, until there was no difference left to tell. I didn't realize the CB had turned back on. Not at first. There was no click, no hiss, no burst of static, just silence that shifted into something else. A quiet breathing, slow, rhythmic, like someone waiting patiently on the other side. I felt myself reaching for the microphone without meaning to. Hands steady, fingers gentle. I pressed the button softly, and I spoke. Or maybe she did. Couldn't tell anymore. "We're here," the voice said. Soft, calm, familiar, but not mine. Not completely. Silence. Long, deep. Then, through the quiet, a voice answered. Distant, tired, like someone who'd been waiting a very long time. "Did you bring her home?" I didn't hesitate this time. "Yes." A pause, just long enough for the rain to remind me it was still there, soft and patient against the windshield. "Is it finished?" I looked down at my hands, her hands, ours, resting gently on the wheel. "Yes," I whispered, my voice softening, merging fully into hers. The circle was closed. The CB crackled softly, not static, something else. Warm, gentle, like the crackle of old vinyl. "You've done well, Matthew." "Grace." "Both of you." My breath slowed even more. Pulse calming, body relaxing into something soft and fine. Outside, the night seemed to breathe out, releasing tension held for centuries. Closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of tears, mine or hers, it didn't matter, on our face. "It's quiet now," I whispered. "Yes," the voice answered softly. "Rest. You're home." The CB clicked gently, and then went silent forever. I sat still, breathing softly, feeling the peace of the end settling around me. Rain faded to mist, the truck quiet, the road empty. And in that gentle silence, my voice whispered once more, barely audible, more breath than words. "Thank you." Then, slowly, carefully, I let go of the wheel, because there was nothing left to hold on to. Nothing left but rest. The rain started gently again. Soft drops tapped against the roof of the Boston Museum loading dock, the sound familiar and distant, like a memory I wasn't sure was mine. A new truck waited, engine idling quietly, headlights cutting softly through the drizzle. A young driver stood near the trailer doors, clipboard in hand, nervous eyes glancing toward the darkened museum entrance. The museum worker stepped out slowly. Older now, weary, face lined deeper than before. "You're the carrier?" he asked quietly. The young driver nodded. Once. "You know the route?" the old man asked, voice low. "Yes. Boston to Baton Rouge. Straight run." The museum worker didn't answer at first, just stared into the young man's eyes, searching quietly, sadly. Finally, he sighed softly. "It's ready. Crate 4 and 17B. Handle with care. Insured cargo." The young driver hesitated, sensing something beneath the words, something heavier. "Anything I should know?" he asked softly. The museum worker paused again, looking past him, eyes distant, remembering something old and heavy. Just don't open it. No matter what you hear or think you hear, keep moving. Don't stop unless you have to. The driver nodded slowly, uncertainly. All right. The old man handed over the paperwork. His fingers trembled just a little. As the driver turned toward his truck, the older man spoke again, voice gentle but weary. "And Matthew?" The young driver paused, startled. "Sorry?" The old man looked confused, then shook his head slowly. "Nothing. Sorry, you just reminded me of someone." The driver nodded awkwardly, turned, climbed into the cab. He started the engine, checked his mirrors. And for just a brief moment, in the reflection of the passenger window, he saw something. A shadow. Shape. Someone seated next to him. He turned fast, heart racing, but the seat was empty. Just a trick of the rain, he thought. Just nerves. Nothing more. He put the truck in gear, rolled slowly out of the loading dock, heading south toward Baton Rouge. And as he left, behind him in the fading darkness of the museum entrance, the older man whispered quietly into the night, his voice heavy, familiar. "Safe travels, Matthew. And Grace." Then he turned, walked back inside, and closed the door behind him, leaving only silence and the gentle sound of rain starting again, as it always had and always would.